When making spring or preload adjustments on the Chief Vintage or Chief Classic models, you'll do it using the shock preload adjuster nut and locking nut. We'll show you how to do that. Your first step will be to use a motorcycle jack and elevate the vehicle until the rear wheel is off the ground. I've placed a piece of tape across the fender. The location of this tape doesn't matter as long as it stays consistent from one measurement to the next. I've also placed a piece of tape across the center of the axle nut. This piece is not important, but it helps when referencing a point to measure back to. So, with the vehicle elevated off the ground, I'll use my ruler and measure from the center or the edge of my tape to the edge of my tape on the fender. So you'll see here I'm at approximately 135 millimeters. I'll write that measurement down. That'll be measurement number 1, or M1. The next step will be to lower the vehicle to the ground and remove the jack completely from underneath the vehicle. Next, I'll replace the seat, the saddlebag, and place the operator, passenger, if they'll be riding with one, and all other equipment on the vehicle, and that will give us our sag in. The next step, with everything on the vehicle, including operator and passenger, I'll remeasure from the edge of my tape where I was before to the same point on my blue mark. You can see here I'm at 125 millimeters. That's measurement 2, or M2. On the Chief model, it's easy to use a piece of tape on the fender as your reference point. On the Chief Vintage, when you place the saddlebags for your second measurement, you may want to start out using the edge of the fender for both measurements, as it's easy to access and measure when the saddlebag is on. So with our first measurement with the vehicle elevated at 135 millimeters and our second measurement with the vehicle loaded at 125 millimeters, it gives us a difference of 10 millimeters. Our specification indicates we should be at 35 millimeters on the Chief Classic and Chief Vintage models. So to adjust the sag on this vehicle, we've determined that the set too stiff or too high. We'll need to decrease the shock pressure to allow the vehicle to sit in or sag farther. After determining we need to decrease our shock pressure to allow for more sit and sag, we'll loosen up our locking nut and then adjust our adjuster nut to decrease shock tension. So I'll put my tool on and move the locking nut and back it off. Next, using the same tool, I can adjust the adjuster nut, decreasing shock pressure or shock tension. After making my adjustments, I want to go back and remeasure with the vehicle lifted off the ground. That measurement will stay consistent, but I'll need to put my passenger, my operator, and gear back on and remeasure the sit and sag, making additional adjustments if needed. Once you've determined your sit and sag or your sag is correct, you can move your locking nut back down and adjust it, tighten it accordingly.